Hello everyone and welcome back to Step by Step with Dr. Wafa. Today we will start our neuroanatomy playlist. Our first topic will be the central nervous system or the CNS. Let's go step by step. The central nervous system is made of two main parts, the brain and the spinal cord. In the drawing here you can see both the brain and the spinal cord. We will start with the brain and then we will move to the spinal cord. And as usual, I will show you drawings that will help you to understand better. The brain is enclosed inside the cranial cavity. This is the cavity inside our skull and you can see it here in this drawing. The brain has four main parts, the cerebrum, the cerebellum, the diencephalon, and the brainstem. In this drawing here, we are looking at different views of the brain. For example, this is the lateral view. We have superior view from up, inferior view from down, anterior from the front, posterior from the back. Also, we have superior lateral and inferior lateral views. Now we have also the medial view, as if we are separating the brain into two parts and then we are looking from the medial side, and then this is the lateral view. We will talk about the parts of the brain in these two views. So you can see here in this view, this is the cerebrum, and also in this view, this is the cerebrum. The small part here is the cerebellum. This is also the cerebellum, and then in the middle you can see just in the medial view you can see this is the diencephalon, and then you can see the brainstem in both views. The cerebrum, it is the largest part of the brain, and as you can see it is composed of two parts. Each part is called a hemisphere. So we have the cerebral hemisphere. The two hemispheres are separated by something called the longitudinal fissure. If we try to separate the two cerebral hemispheres from each other, we can do that up to a certain point. So the part where we can separate the two cerebral hemispheres from each other, this is called the longitudinal fissure. At the point that we cannot separate the two cerebral hemispheres from each other, this is called the corpus callosum. Let's go again to the drawing. So in the medial view, you can see this dark area here. This is called the corpus callosum, and this is the part that we cannot separate the two cerebral hemispheres from each other. So the corpus callosum will connect the two cerebral hemispheres to each other. So again, the area that we can separate it from each other, it is called the longitudinal fissure, and where the two cerebral hemispheres are connected, this is known as the corpus callosum. Now, if we took a section from the cerebrum, either the cross section or the coronal section, we can see it is composed of two areas, the dark area known as the gray matter and the white area or the pale area known as the white matter. In the cerebrum, we have two areas that is composed of the gray matter. These are the outer part of the cerebrum known as the cerebral cortex, and also a group of cells bodies inside the white matter known as the basal nuclei. The inner part of the cerebrum is known as the medulla, and it is composed of white matter. If we look at this drawing, we can see we have two sections of the brain, the coronal section and the cross section. In both of them we have the dark area from outside known as the cortex, which is the gray matter, and the inner part, which is the white matter or the medulla of the cerebrum. In the middle of the white matter we can see a group of cells known as the basal nuclei. The functional unit of the nervous system is known as the neuron. The neuron is composed of cell bodies and a long axon. The cell body is not covered by anything, that is why it is dark in color, and this represents the gray matter. The axon on the other side is covered by the white myelin sheath, so it represents the white matter. Now let's try to draw the neuron inside this section of the cerebrum. You can find the cell bodies in the outer part of the cortex and the axons in the middle of the medulla or the white matter. The axons of the neuron forming the white matter, also known as the fibers. We have different types of fibers, namely the association fiber, the commissural fiber, and the projection fibers. We will talk about them in more details in other videos. If we look at the cerebrum from the lateral view, we can see the surface of the cerebrum forming folds. These folds are known as the sulci and gyri. So the upward projection is called the gyrus and the downward or the groove is called the sulcus. We have two major sulci in the lateral view of the cerebrum. The first one is known as the central sulcus and the other one is known as the lateral sulcus. Those sulci divide the cerebrum into lobes. Now let's talk about the lobes of the cerebrum. So anterior to the central sulcus, this is known as the frontal lobe. Posterior to the central sulcus, this is known as the parietal lobe. Below the lateral sulcus, this is known as the temporal lobe. And posteriorly, we have the occipital lobe. In addition to these four lobes, we have additional lobe which is known as the limbic lobe and it is functional lobe. Let's now move to another part of the cerebrum which is the diencephalon. The diencephalon is located in the center of the cerebrum and it is composed of the thalamus, the hypothalamus and the epithalamus. Each part has its own function, but let us look at them in the drawing here. So in the medial view here, in the center of the cerebrum, you can see this part is called the thalamus. Posteriorly, we have the epithalamus and anteriorly, we have the hypothalamus. If we took all this part and see it in isolation, this is what we will see. This is the lateral view if we are looking from the side and this is the anterior view. So the upper part here, it is the thalamus and here also this is the thalami and between them we can see the epithalamus. The third part of the brain is known as the brainstem and it is composed of three parts, the midbrain, the pons and the medulla oblongata. It connects the brain to the spinal cord. In the same drawing, you can see just below the diencephalon and the thalamus, this is the brainstem. The upper part is known as the midbrain, the middle part is the pons, and the lower part is the medulla oblongata. And then in the other view also we can see the midbrain, the pons, and the medulla oblongata. Then the medulla oblongata will pass through a hole in the skull known as the foramen magnum to become the spinal cord inside the vertebral canal. Finally, the last part, it is the cerebellum. It is also known as the mini-brain and it lies below the cerebrum. It helps in balance and coordination. Now we will move to the second part of the central nervous system, which is the spinal cord. The spinal cord is located inside the vertebral canal and it is the canal that lies inside the vertebral column in this drawing. You can see here the spinal cord. The spinal cord is divided into segments and from each segment we have emerging nerve. In the cervical region we have 8 segments. In the thoracic region we have 12 segments. In the lumbar region we have 5. In the sacral we have 5 and in the coccygeal we have only 1. Similar to the brain, the spinal cord is composed of gray and white matter, where the gray represents the cell bodies and the white matter represents the axons of those neurons. This is a drawing of the spinal cord. The gray matter lies in the middle part and it represents the cell bodies, while the white matter, it surrounds the gray matter and it is composed of the axons. These axons will form tracts that either going up or down. So if they are going up toward the brain, this is called the ascending tract and usually they carry the sensory information from the peripheral nervous system to the brain. On the other hand, we have the descending tract that carry the motor function or the motor orders from the brain to the peripheral nervous system. Then we have some shared features that included in both the brain and the spinal cord. The first feature is known as the ventricular system. It is composed of chambers that is filled by fluid known as the cerebrospinal fluid or the CSF. You can see in these drawings we have the lateral ventricles in those parts and then we have the third ventricle, the fourth ventricle, and from there the fluid will go either to the spinal cord or to surround the brain from outside. The second feature is known as the meninges. The meninges are multiple layers or membranes that cover both the brain and the spinal cord. It is composed of three layers and we can see it in this drawing. So in the middle we have the brain and the outer part, this is the bone of the skull. The first layer that is attached directly to the brain tissue, this is known as the pia mater. Then outward we have the arachnoid mater and the outer part is known as the dura mater. Between the arachnoid mater and the pia mater we have a space known as the subarachnoid space, and it contains the cerebrospinal fluid or the CSF that we just talked about it when we talked about the ventricular system. We will also talk about the cells of the nervous system. Mainly we have the neuron and the glial cell. We have in the glial cells we have the Schwann cell and the oligodendroids. Both of them will form the myelin sheath around the axons of the neuron. We have also the ependymal cell that line the ventricular wall, and then we have the microglia and the astrocyte. Lastly, we have the embryology of the central nervous system or the development of the nervous system. In the beginning, we have something called the neuronal tube, and then in this tube we will have vesicles. These vesicles will form the different parts of the brain. That is all for today's video. In the next videos, we will go deeper into each part. If you found this helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. See you next session.